For the time being, though, let's go over to my next guest. Very pleased to be joined by the chief political writer at Spiked Online, Brendan O'Neill. Welcome, Brendan.
Hey, Kevin, how's it going?
Good. Well, sort of good after today's budget. Now, I've just been running through the hell of it all with Isabel Oakeshott. So we know what's going on here. This is another £30 billion tax grab. The welfare bill is now set to rocket to about £420 billion by 2030. Workers are going to get hit. Everyone will get hit. A mad mosaic of taxes on houses, taxis, milkshakes, hotels, having fun, holidays in Cornwall, you name it, she's taxed it. So we accept. It's horrible. It's like a great big sledgehammer on aspiration on anyone who wants to work hard, because basically people who are working hard, who carry on working hard, will basically be taxed to the hilt, and that money will be given to people who don't work, particularly people with huge families, because the two-child cap benefit has been lifted. Now, but what I thought I'd run, so we accept this is a bad budget. This is a horrific budget. Probably the second worst budget in modern British history, after Rachel's first budget last October, which was a £40 billion tax grab. So what I thought I'd do with you, Brendan, if that's all right with you, is run through the reasons for this. What it is that this government continues to insanely spend money on. 7 million people claiming disability benefits, many of them for mental health and anxiety problems. People signed off, 3 million people signed off work for life. Long-term sickness, so often not physical sickness. The 1 in 5 of all new cars purchased by the Mad Motability scheme, which hands out motors, as I just said, to people who are anxious and depressed. God knows why. The £5 billion a year, the £5 billion asylum seeker bill is now set. She mentioned this, she announced this in her speech today in the Commons, Rachel Reeves, is now going to go up to 15 billion. So the migrant crisis will continue apace, and it's clear this government has no way of solving it. The lunacy of the £205 billion NHS money pit into which Labour keeps pouring more and more cash pointlessly. The 3,500 non-medical middle managers at the NHS earning £100,000 a year or more. The 800 NHS diversity officers costing £40 million a year. The 500 diversity officers in the civil service, including 60 at the Ministry of Defence, who hilariously call themselves protecting the protectors. Many billions of pounds could be instantly saved. The money we're losing on net zero insanity. So all of this is why we are being taxed up to here, to pay for this ongoing profligate madness on the part of this socialist government.
You know, you say it's a bad budget, one of the worst budgets ever after her previous budget. It's even worse than I expected. I knew it was going to be bad. I knew that the Labour government was economically illiterate and visionless and vapid and stupid. I knew all of those things, and yet even I am shocked by how bad this budget is. And you're absolutely right to raise all those kind of black holes into which our money is being poured. All these ridiculous diversity schemes, the bloated welfare bill, which is completely and utterly out of control, giving people cars, letting people stay off work because they're a little bit anxious, all the rest of it. You know, we're spending billions on looking after people who are not ill. You know, there are a small number of people who cannot work for perfectly legitimate reasons, and society has agreed that we need to help those people out. But there are now millions upon millions of people who are not working because they don't want to work, and we're having to pay for them. And you know what this really means, Kevin? This is, if you think about it like this, it's really shocking, which is that when you and I go to work, when your listeners go to work, we're working not only for ourselves, but for someone else. We're actually carrying someone on our back every single day because we are paying for the upkeep of someone else who is not working. So we are essentially working not only for ourselves and our own families, but for other families too, because we are being drained through all these various new tax schemes. They said they wouldn't raise taxes, but of course they have. We're being drained of that money in order to pay people who are not working. So this is a catastrophically unfair system. And it's really starting to dawn on people now that they are actually having to pay not only for their own kids and their own elderly parents, but for other people's as well. And that is actually really quite shocking. And, you know, when I hear that people say that you can't have more than 2 kids unless you have all these handouts, that really winds me up. I come from a large family. There were 6 kids in the family in which I grew up. There were my parents, 6 kids, and a lodger in a pretty small house. We got child benefit, which back then was universal. Everyone in the country got child benefit, which wasn't that much. And that was it. We got absolutely nothing else. Everything else my parents worked their butts off for, as they expected to. They didn't want handouts. So this new culture we've created where people expect that the state will help them to do everything, I think that is very, very destructive.
And of course, this is the flames of this over-generous welfare madness are fanned by the people who are now effectively running the country, and that is these noisy left-wing Labour backbenchers who scored that huge victory against Liz Kendall and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves during the welfare debate not so long ago, a few months back, where Labour planned, the government planned originally actually to reduce the welfare bill by £15 billion. They realised that was a bit of a long shot, so they reduced it to £5 billion, and all the Labour left-wing backbenchers rose up in fury, told them, if you go through with this, we'll vote it down, and they ended up buckling completely. And in fact, the bid to reduce our welfare bill, our national welfare bill, by a modest £5 billion ended up going the other way. The welfare bill actually went up. Now it's going to go up by £100 billion by 2030. It's going to go up and up. Now, people are fond of saying that Britain is a health system with a country attached because of the £200 billion that the NHS, the bloated, hopeless NHS, gobbles up all of the time. Well, here's another. This is what we are now. Yes, we're that. We're also a welfare system with a state attached. The welfare system is like, it's got this sort of little feeding animal, which is us. Attached to it. That's what our future is under Labour. Those of us who work, the alarm clock class, are now, we have officially been told that what you're going to have to do from now on is work your butts off to pay for the people who don't work, to pay for our welfare bill. That's our future, isn't it?
That's our future, and it is completely unsustainable. As you say, it's going to be the bill is going to be 100 billion quid by 2029, 2030. You know, if you look at the system now, here, you know, the amount of income tax that the government gets is equal, almost equal to the welfare bill. So that means that all the taxes that we're paying in, pretty much all the taxes that working people are paying in, is going on to these kinds of schemes. Now, of course, that includes pensioners and other things as well, but it's going to people who are not working. And this is just simply an unsustainable situation. And this is not the vision for welfare that people had in the 1940s and the 1950s when the welfare state was being developed. The welfare state was a pretty civilized idea, which was that, you know, society shouldn't let people go by the wayside. If someone is briefly unemployed, temporarily unemployed, and of course looking for work, then the government should help them for that period of time. It was seen as a discreet thing that you would do to help people in times of need, not as a way of life. Not as something that you do forever, from the moment you're born till the moment you die. And, you know, of course, we all agree, if someone is disabled and can't work, society should help them. If there's a single mum who's really down on her luck and can't work for a period of time, society should help her and help her kids. We all agree with that. But what we never signed up for is this permanent system of constant assistance in the lives of people who don't need it. And if you look at those people who are claiming incapacity benefit and those other ridiculous benefits, they include 25-year-olds with blue hair who went to university and now think they're too anxious to get a job. I mean, this is what we're talking about. You know, it sounds like a caricature, but it's actually true. Those are the kinds of people that you and me and all your listeners are helping to prop up because they can't be asked to go to work, if we're going to be frank about it. And that system is unsustainable, and it is driving down aspiration in this country. It is creating new generations who think, well, why should I bother getting a job? Because a low-paid job is not as good as getting money from the government. That's really driving down a sense of autonomy, a sense of community networking, a sense that we're all in this together and we should all muck in together. That old view of Britain has completely died under the weight of the welfare state.
And of course, the backbenchers to whom I referred earlier, massive cheer from them today when she announced what we knew was coming, which was the axing of the two-child cap on the kid benefits. And this will cost this nation £3 to £3.5 billion a year. At least 18,000 large families are now in line to pocket, for each family, £14,000 a year. The scale of this is just enormous, and it's insane, because I remember the dark old days when there wasn't a cap before, and there were families all over the country who had children as a business. You'll remember that. There used to be these stories of families who were getting £110,000 a year in benefit because they contrived to have 10 children. We'll be going down that road again. There is nothing healthy about allowing people to have as many children as they like and for the state to give them more and more money per kid. That is not healthy. That is a bad thing to do, and yet Rachel today, when the Tories, to their credit, sort of shouted her down a bit, she said it's the moral thing to do. It's totally immoral because of those of us who have had to pay for it.
It's completely immoral. And what you end up with is this completely warped situation where, because these people can now have as many kids as they want and they'll get loads of money from the government, what that means is that working people are now thinking, can we afford to have kids? You know, you've got these young working couples, especially working class couples, who are out there every day grafting, making ends meet, trying to buy a new home or a flat, people who really do work hard for a living. People in their 20s, you know, let's not get too down on the younger generations. There are people in their 20s working really hard every day, getting married, trying to create a home, trying to create a family. Those people are thinking, well, can we afford to have kids? Can we afford to have 2? Can we afford to have 3? And one of the reasons they're now going to be asking that question is because more of their money, more of society's money is being taken and given to people who aren't working but want to have 10 kids. Now, I happen to think people should have as many kids as they want. They should have 0, 5, 10. Absolutely, knock yourselves out. As I say, I come from a big family myself. But if you can't afford to have kids, then you need to rethink what you're doing. And if you are hard up for cash, as many people are, and many people have always been, then you have to scrimp and save and make sure that you keep your kids well fed and well dressed within the means that you have. That was seen as the way of life for centuries. You had kids, you looked after them. It's the bottom line of human society. It's the bottom line of human civilization. We've taken a cudgel to that with this new system that says we will throw money all over you if you have kids, regardless of whether you can afford them or not. I think it's a catastrophic system, and more people out there are going to be asking some awkward questions about this.
Exactly right. And a few words from you, if you will, Brendan, about the death of the killing, the slaughter of aspiration. You know, it is now, the minimum wage is going to go up. It's going to make it very difficult for employers, companies, big and small, to hire kids, apprenticeships, because the minimum wage is going to be too high for them to afford it. They're already struggling to afford anyone because of the rise in national insurance, so there is that. The taxing of businesses generally, so fewer jobs, companies unable to function properly, unable to hire people, and if you are lucky enough to be employed, you're lucky enough to be doing well, she's going to tax your house, mansion tax, and so on and so forth. I think Lord David Frost today said, this government, with this budget, this government is encouraging people to work hard and save for their futures in the way that a cat might encourage a mouse to exercise. That's pretty much sums it up. If you work hard and you save for your future, they're going to kill you. It's unbelievable. It's so depressing.
It's very depressing. I think what they're doing, they're crushing the entrepreneurial spirit. And I mean the entrepreneurial spirit both in a business sense and in an individual community sense. Because what they're doing, they're making life harder for businesses. We all know that. And what this government has done with the economy is really, really disastrous, because they talked it down. You remember when they used to say, oh my God, the British economy is terrible. It's a black hole. It's a complete mess. And that really drove down external interest in this country. People started to think, well, why would we set up a business in Britain if it's as disastrous as its own government is saying? So it constantly talked down Britain and Britain's economy. The government also allowed inflation and unemployment to grow at the same time as saying it wouldn't tax us, but then it did. And it's pumping all this unnecessary billions of pounds into welfare. Across the board, every single one of those measures has been catastrophic. But I think in some ways, the talking down of Britain that this government has engaged in from the very beginning, when it first got into power more than a year ago, that's been the worst thing, because it just doesn't believe in this country. Yeah. This is a government that doesn't believe this country is a good place, doesn't think its history is interesting or good or worth celebrating, and doesn't think we're up to much economically. Thinks that we can just kind of make ends meet and borrow from the future to pay for the present, and keep giving money to people who are not actually productive members of society. It just thinks it's managing a bank rather than running a national economy. We should take pride in what Britain has achieved economically. This is the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. This is the birthplace of so much in relation to the computer industry and modernity itself. And yet it's constantly talked down by this government. I think they have really taken a sledgehammer to the very idea of economic growth and economic aspiration. And the consequence of that are going to be felt for a long time.
They really, really are. And then there's this class warfare aspect to it. People with expensive houses, £2 million houses, will get them. It's an ideological budget as well as a dreadful budget.